Okay, the recording has started.
Okay, thank you. We'll call this meeting to order. Sunshine Ordinance Task Force on April 7th at 2021 at 4:04 p.m. Victor Young is our administrator for tonight. Running the controls. My name is Bruce Wolf. I am the chair. And with me is Vice Chair Matthew Yankee, and the rest of the task force is present except for Member LaHood, but we'll call roll. Please do so.
Yes. On the call of the roll, Member Schmidt.
Present.
Schmidt present. Member LaHood. LaHood absent. Member Frazier.
Present.
Frazier present. Member Pamaban.
Present.
Pamaban present. Member Wong. Member Wong, you are muted.
Present. Is that working?
Wong present. Member Stein.
Here.
Stein present. Member Highland.
Present.
Highland present. Member Neighbors.
Present.
Neighbors present. Member Forsley.
Here.
Forsley present. Vice Chair Yankee.
Present.
Yankee present. Chair Wolf.
Present.
Wolf present. We have a quorum. I just wanted to read our remote access information. In accordance with Governor Newsom's executive order declaring a state of emergency regarding COVID-19 outbreak, the Mayor of London and Breed's proclamation declaring a local emergency, including a guidance for gathering issued by San Francisco Department of Public Health officer. Aggressive directives were issued to reduce the spread of COVID-19. On March 17, 2020, the Board of Supervisors authorized their boards and committees to convene remotely and will allow remote public comment via teleconference. Members of the public may participate by phone or may submit their comment by email to cheryl.leger@sfgov.org. All comments received will be made part of the official record. Sunshine Ordinance Task Force agendas and their associated documents are available on our website at http://sfbos.org/sunshine. That completes my initial announcements.
Okay, great. If you would, okay, and then, okay. And then also, as the COVID-19 disease progresses, please visit the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force website regularly to be updated on the current situation as affects the legislative process. Our meeting decorum states, states any member of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force may call for decorum due to disorderly conduct of meeting participants. Persons who engage in threatening and or menacing behavior may be asked to leave or be removed from the meeting. Okay, any changes or adjustments to the agenda? No? Okay. All right, let's move to our next item. Please call number 2.
Yes, item number 2 is approval of the minutes from the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force meeting of March 3rd, 2021.
Any changes or adjustments to the minutes?
This is Vice Chair Yankee. I have just a couple here. Let me know when you're ready, Victor.
Give me a quick moment. Okay, please proceed.
Okay, on the first page, the vote for the first item, Member Highland is listed as voting twice.
Page 1. Highland listed as voting twice.
And then the other thing I had is we probably should put the time of adjournment that's missing on this one at the very end.
And requested the time of adjournment.
That's all I had.
This is Member Stein. This is a very small point, but on item 9, under Chair's Report Special Projects, the last sentence says Mr. Warfield, describes next request as a catastrophe, and it has a question mark at the end. I think it just needs to be a period.
Sorry, I'm talking to myself to remove the question mark. Sometimes when I proof the agendas, I put in question marks where I'm not sure what is supposed to be there, and we must have missed following up and removing that. Sorry, I am writing these notes as we go.
Okay, any other changes or adjustments to the minutes?
Yes, I have a few. On page similar to the action. On item 2, Member Highland is repeated twice on the motion passed by the following vote.
Okay, that was for Padmanabhan.
Yes.
Just please identify yourself before you speak, or if I don't do it for you. Thank you.
On the first motion, Member Highland is repeated twice. On the second motion, Member Wong is repeated twice. And still on item 3 in the last motion, Member Neighbors is repeated twice.
Okay, then we have Member Wong.
And one more.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. On page 3.
Sorry, can you repeat that? You can off for a sec.
Which page?
On page 3. Can you hear me? Is it? So on page 3, under public comment, it says Peter Warfield stated that he had difficulty understanding the minutes and could not identify the male voice who said something about the and who could answer questions. So I'm not sure what that means.
Okay, we'll look at that and we'll clean up the language.
Okay. And that's what it.
Member Wong.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a note about some of the anonymous references to speakers. I think it genders people, and I think we should just remove the genders without knowing.
Sure. You can replace either remove the genders or replace it with the word they or them. And just be cognizant, members, for those that are attending today that are anonymous, that is probably a preferential pronoun. Okay, anything else for the minutes? Okay, let's open it up to public comment. Public comment on the minutes.
Okay, members of the public who wish to provide public comment on item number 2, the approval of the minutes, you may do so at this time. Please state your name if you'd like to make public comment at this time.
Yes, Peter Warfield, can you hear me?
Yes, Peter Warfield. Are there any other callers who would like to make comment on this item?
Anonymous, please.
Okay, we'll start with those two. Mr. Warfield, you may proceed.
Yes, will you give me a 30-second warning, please? I don't
Yes.
have a timer handy. Thank you very much. This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. We can be reached at libraryusers2004@yahoo.com and by mail at P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. As I've noted before, I have given some of these details about identity, if you like, for a reason, and part of it is to replace what can happen at a real meeting, excuse me, where people can go up to each other and comment personally about what they've heard, what they've seen, and basically make a connection if that seems appropriate and desired on both sides. So the first thing I have to say is that I'm very disappointed that even though I have made a point of giving my name and affiliation, everything has been stripped out except the name. Now, the Sunshine Ordinance requires that you state who spoke if they gave their name, but it also says you need to summarize what they have said. And I think that I have made a point of giving an affiliation. The group that I head has also made a complaint, which is currently in progress. So I think it's appropriate to honor that, basically using the name and so on that people offer you. I have yet to understand, and I've tried repeatedly to speak with somebody about, well, the administrator, by sending emails and phone calls. Actually have been trying to speak for about a month in connection with the complaint and also with connection with what's going on with the minutes. But there's no explanation of why all that has been stripped out. I can say that in the past, at least the Library Users Association, which we gave, was included when we were referenced. So that's number one. I think it's important, when Black Lives Matter say her name, say his name, say their name. There's a reason for that. I think names and, beg your pardon?
That was your 30 seconds.
Thank you. I agree with some of the issues that were raised about the content. I think that some of the content here is not clearly summarized. In particular, I said that next request is seriously problematic with respect to the requesters, and I did say it was a catastrophe from that perspective. A lot of the comments that are summarized here just don't really seem to make that much sense. Some of them are fine, but quite a few of them are pretty much incomprehensible. And I think that you should make the changes and then approve them after the changes have been made so that they can again be seen by the body and also by the public. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Anonymous, you may begin your public comment.
Thank you very much. This is Anonymous. I agree with Member Wong. There's a thing that calls out one of the anonymous speakers, an anonymous female speaker, and I don't think that's appropriate. Nobody calls out anonymous male speakers as different from anyone else. There's a bigger issue with the motion as recorded for the item against the Treasurer Tax Collector's Office. That is not the motion that was made, and I stated this during general public comment there, and I'm stating it again now. Member Neighbors and Member Schmidt made a very precise motion. It did not remove Jose Cisneros and Teresa Buckley from respondents. You never changed my respondents in that case. You found 4 violations, and it's at 1 hour, 22 minutes, and 33 seconds in the audio tape. The motion as recorded completely misses the violation for metadata that Member Neighbors proposed and that you all voted for and that I won. And she specifically made 4 violations. 6726 for withholding all information about a future meeting between Cisneros and the mayor. 6721B for printing and scanning electronic records, which does not constitute a copy of the original records. 6726 for withholding hyperlinked URLs, email addresses, and 6726 for withholding all non-exempt email and calendar metadata instead of minimally redacting it. And I understand people might wonder, why does Anonymous care when he's already won? They gave me most of the stuff after, including the metadata, after you made your ruling. I care because the motion is what's copied into the order of determination and is kind of the legacy of the work that this task force does, that I do, that the city does on each case. and I do think it's worth it to be precise about what you have determined is disclosable. So I'd urge you to correct the motion as exactly moved, seconded, and voted upon at 1 hour, 22 minutes, and 33 seconds in the audio tape. Thank you.
Thank you.
Victor, before we move on, I just want to respond to that. I did see the email from you, Anonymous, on this, and I wanted to wait until you spoke because your message said something about it being in the agenda, and in the subject line it said draft minutes, so I wasn't quite sure what you were referring to. So thanks for the clarification. I don't think I'll leave it open. Once we get through public comment, we'll come back to it, and we'll see what the rest of the task force members feel about it, and then we'll take it up from there. Next speaker.
Are there any additional members of the public who wish to comment on the approval of the minutes?
Okay, members. So there was, as Anonymous had referred to, this is in the minutes for file number 19131, and there is, it has been truncated quite a bit, and I think it should be amended to include the proper language that was presented by Member Neighbors and seconded by Member Schmidt. If there are no objections, we'll add that to the edits.
Give me a quick moment. I just want to get to that and get the exact language you want to change it to. That's 193.
19131.
Okay.
Do you want me to read it through, or do you have it?
Give me a quick moment. I'm pulling up that motion so that I can make the appropriate changes. But
Okay.
yes, please do list it.
Okay,
I am ready to transcribe.
Okay, so the it should be noted as action moved by Member Neighbors, seconded by Member Schmidt, to find.
And please,
Sure.
we're talking about the last meeting of March.
No, of yes, of March 3rd.
March 3rd, when okay. Oh, okay. I must have been looking at the wrong item. Sorry, I copied the wrong thing. Okay, I am ready again.
Okay, so it's stated as action, capital M, moved by Member Neighbors, seconded by Member Schmidt, to find that Jose Cisneros, comma, Teresa Buckley, comma, and Treasurer's Office violated Administrative Code, Sunshine Ordinance, Section 67.26, for withholding all information about a future meeting between Cisneros and the mayor, comma, 67 sub B, as in Bravo, for printing and scanning electronic records, which does not constitute a quote copy, close quote, of the original records, comma, 67.26 for withholding hyperlink URLs, comma, email addresses.
One moment.
Sure.
One pause. You listed 67.26 twice. Do you want those as separate listings or?
Yes, because they're two different allegations, two different findings.
Before I go further, I believe it's not just the treasurer's office; it's the treasurer's tax collector's office.
Okay. I'm just reading from what has been suggested.
It's a pretty title.
That's fine.
I am on the third motion, which is 67.26 for withholding hyperlink.
Hyperlink URLs, comma, email addresses, comma, and 67.26 again for withholding all non-exempt email.
Withholding all hyphen exempt.
No, non-exempt.
For all non
hyphen exempt.
Got it.
Email and calendar metadata instead of minimally redacting it, period. Now this is verbatim from the audio tape. So it can be I guess it can be adjusted to be more exacting by using the treasurer tax collector's office, if that's appropriate.
We will make necessary clerical changes to it.
Okay, great. Also, be noted for these minutes that the metadata was missing from the minutes copy itself, from the document as posted.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, members, are there any concerns about that? This is just being more exact to the motion that was made at the meeting at the time, verbatim from the minutes, so that it's correct, and that way the order determination reflects the same. Okay, hearing no more other public comment, are we ready for a vote? Okay, when you're ready, Victor, please call.
We need a mover and a second.
Oh, right, I'm sorry. Is there somebody want to move the minutes, please?
This is Member Wong, motion to approve the minutes.
Moved by Member Wong, is there a second?
Member Frazier seconds.
So be it. Okay.
Yeah, moment. Sorry for all the delays. I'm just trying to get everything down in writing, so there are no questions at a later time. Motion to approve the minutes as amended. We have already taken public comment on this item. On that motion, sorry, my list is off. Sorry about this. I just am not completely set up.
That's okay. Take your time.
Member Wong.
Aye.
Wong, aye. Member Frazier.
Aye.
Frazier, aye. Member Schmidt.
Aye.
Schmidt, aye. Member LaHood. LaHood absent. Member Potamon.
Aye.
Potamon, aye. Member Stein.
Aye.
Stein, aye. Member Highland.
Aye.
Highland, aye. Member Neighbors.
Aye.
Neighbors, aye. Member Forsley.
Aye.
Forsley, aye. Vice Chair Yankee.
Aye.
Yankee, aye. Chair Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. The motion passes with Member LaHood being absent.
I just want to recognize Member LaHood just joined the meeting at 4:29.
Thank you.
Okay, I do want to one other piece of housekeeping for the agenda that I failed to bring up. Item number, I'm looking at the minutes. Hold on, let me get back to the agenda. Whoops. Items number 10, 9 and 10, which is file numbers 20066 and 19145. We were notified a couple of days ago that the representative from the police commission had a scheduling conflict because the police commission meets at the same time. And they wouldn't be able, they requested that these items be moved to the top of the agenda. The problem is, we've dealt with this before in various different iterations of, but once the agenda has gone out, it makes it a little difficult to make those adjustments if people before them have adjusted their own agendas. And, folks that work with the police commission, they know all too well when those commission meetings meet. So, this would, if we were to make this adjustment, we would have to ask all the other parties for the previous items if they would be willing to have their items be moved down 2 slots at this point. The police commission folks have asked for a continuance. Our rules do not allow it, and it doesn't even allow the complainant to actually be party to that. It's really up to the task force. At this point, because it's so late breaking. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. And if we wanted to make an adjustment to the agenda, we would, need to go through a process. Now, this isn't the first time, we've already provided a continuance to 19147 last month for the respondent. So this is where it's coming back.
Public comment?
No.
This is Member Wong.
Member Wong.
Chair Wolf, question. So the request was made today. Is that correct?
No, it was made on Monday.
And the agenda went out on Friday, correct?
Correct, but everybody gets a meeting notice well in advance of a week that are parties. And frankly, police commission meetings, it's well known that they coincide with our meetings. So, knowing that that this was continued from the February, it actually was continued from the February meeting, not the March meeting, excuse me, that, I'm disinclined to allow it. And it would put us through a process now that would probably take us another 30 minutes to get through in asking every single file, the parties for files before these cases, these files, whether they would be open to it. People, have planned to be here, as close to, where they are on the agenda, and that would mean that they would have to stay longer. So, Member Highland.
Member Highland here. So basically, you're asking if one of us would like to entertain a motion. If we do not entertain that motion to change the agenda, then we keep the agenda as is.
That's correct.
Okay.
I just wanted to give you some opportunity to ask questions, get clarification about what's going on. And then I was going to call for a motion. And if there wasn't any motion, then it will, everything will stay as is. And when we get to those items, then we'll deal with how we'll proceed with them at that point. Any other questions?
Yes.
Member LaHood?
So is this always going to be a problem because of the timing of these two meetings? And will we know in the future that anyone from the police department always needs to be early in the schedule, or is it just the particular individuals involved in this case?
Well, it's whoever is the representative that the police commission is sending. It was the conflict with that person. Now, I don't know if that's the only sole person that has the ability to do that, but certainly they could send a different representative, or any of the members of the commission. I mean, if they're meeting at the same time, they can't be present here, obviously. If this is going to be a continual problem, then they should notify us, and then we might have to figure out some other way, either through a special meeting or some other process in order to deal with it. Some of these cases that come forward can take some time. So even if we put it at the beginning of the meeting, by the time they have to leave, they might be asking for a continuance during the meeting. That's happened before too. So, and sometimes they just leave. So, and then that poses an imposition on the task force at that point. So, trying to avoid that. But for this time, I just feel that it's a little late in the day to be asking for a continuance. Had they done it a week before, at least, it would have activated our process a little differently, the way it's written. Member Forsley. You're muted.
Thanks. I think Member Highland might have been before me.
You already spoke.
Oh, okay. I was thinking that I believe that it says that this would be some type of like we're deciding on the spot to alter the agenda, correct?
Correct.
So I thought that was not okay. And I just feel like even if we voted on it, then we're just like changing the rules right now, probably, which is not the best idea.
We're not adding anything to the agenda. We're just moving the order of the agenda around. That is perfectly okay. We've done it many, many, many times before. We just can't add things to the agenda. We can only decide what is on the agenda itself. But we have made accommodations to move things around before. It's just that we can't. We can remove things off the agenda if they're not going to happen for some reason, but we can't add things. That's the
yeah. I do understand the adding part because it's already been like posted to the public. It seems like kind of moving around, just given people's times, might just be difficult right now. And I would tend to agree with you that we should probably just leave it where it is, and when we come to it, do that, because if I had a case that was supposed to be called first and 2 cases went ahead of mine, I would not be happy with that.
Very good. Member Highland, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, give everyone some institutional knowledge. They've probably done this about half a dozen times in the last 8, 9 years. They post their agendas the same day we do. They know who has to be there. I think their representative needs to coordinate with our clerk better to, ask for continuances well in advance of agendas being posted when they get that first notification. So I agree that I think we just keep things as is. That's all.
Okay. All right. I'm going to forego public comment on this. There's no motion on the floor. It's just a matter of bringing it up. If there was a motion, it would have been substantial. I would allow it. I just want to get on with our meeting. We have a lot to get through here. If anybody has any concerns, please bring them up during public comment. I appreciate it. Thank you. Let's call the first item, please.
Chair Wolf, would you like to
Yes.
read item 3 and 4 at the same time or call them separately?
No, calling them separately.
Okay. Item number 3, file number 19048, complaint filed by Justin Barker against the San Francisco Zoo for violating Administrative Code, Section 67.21 by failing to respond to a public records request in a timely and/or complete manner. This matter was heard by the Compliance and Amendments Committee, and which moved to return the matter to the task force with recommendation for escalation of action due to noncompliance of the order of determination.
Okay, Member LaHood, who is chair of the Compliance and Amendments Committee. Was this did the committee want to make a recommendation to combine the two items, or is there?
We I don't
heard them the same day.
We heard them the same day. I think that would make sense. We did not vote specifically on that, but I think my fellow committee members would agree that that would be a good idea at this point.
Okay. If I'm going to take it, the reason why
would you like a motion?
That, the reason why I said we're going to hear them separately because I didn't hear from anyone. Mm-hmm. So until I hear from someone, that's why I'm inquiring with you.
I would like to make a motion to combine items 3 and 4 on the agenda. These have gone back and forth from the task force to the committee a couple of times, and they're always on the same. They are always listed adjacently, and conversations tend to overlap. I think it would make sense going forward to combine these two items, and that is my motion.
Okay, before we take a second, can I just clarify that we're gonna be hearing each of the files independently, but just together. We're not combining them into one file. Is that correct?
If that is what you recommend, I think yes. I think we should. If you think it's a good idea for us to have discussion on both of them together, but not combine the files, but to hear them jointly, I think that would be a good idea, and I will make a motion to that effect.
Yeah, I'm just saying because these are already adjudicated. You're returning these back to the task force for escalation. So yes. They're still two. They're independent. They've already been adjudicated. We want to keep it that way. And we'll want to make sure that if the violations if there are additional violations, that both file numbers are applied appropriately because they're two separate orders of determination that we'll be hearing. Correct?
That makes sense. We will, because we're responding to two different orders of determination, it makes sense to keep the files separate, but because the discussion overlaps so much between the two, I think having overlapping discussion would help move the conversation along faster and will be relevant to both cases.
Okay, great. So with that, the motion on the floor is that we'll be hearing both items 3 and 4 together, keeping each item as a file number independent from each other. and we'll move along with the process from that point forward. Is there a second?
This is Member Wong. I'll second that motion.
Okay, moved by Member LaHood, second by Member Wong. Any other discussion? Okay, public comment on the motion.
Give me a quick moment. Just getting organized. Is there any public comment on the motion to hear items 3 and 4 together?
Yes, please.
Yes, we have Mr. Warfield who would like to make public comment. Please proceed.
This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. We are not connected to these complaints. We've commented before about the potential confusion procedurally with respect to how things will work, and in particular with respect to what is going to happen with public comment on these items. They're listed as 2 separate items. Will there be all the material taken from both of them and then 1 public comment period? How long will that be? Will there be public comment individually as each one presumably is presented separately? This is not clear. If there is clarity in procedures, I would be very interested to get a referral to that. But I have yet to hear this is something that has happened in the past, and I don't know that I've gotten a clear answer that has been consistent over time. And in any case, it's been quite a while since I recall raising the question. I don't know if there is any standard procedure that you want to apply, but in any case, I think it ought to be at least clear to the public and perhaps to the parties as well as to how exactly you are planning to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Is any other public comment on sorry, I didn't catch that. You cut off a little bit. Is there any other members of the public for public comment on this motion? I do not hear any other public commenters.
Public comment is closed. Okay, members, let's take a vote. Please call roll.
Yes, on the motion. Member LaHood.
Aye.
LaHood, aye. Member Wong.
Aye.
Wong, aye. Member Highland.
Aye.
Highland, aye. Member Frazier.
Aye.
Frazier, aye. Member Forsley.
Aye.
Forsley, aye. Member Padmaban.
Aye.
Padmaban, aye. Member Neighbors.
Aye.
Neighbors, aye. Member Stein.
Aye.
Stein, aye. Member Schmidt.
Aye.
Schmidt, aye. Member Yankee.
Aye.
Yankee, aye. Member Highland. Oh, sorry. Highland's listed twice. I copy that from the last set of minutes. Chair Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. The motion passes without objection.
Thank you. Okay, just for everyone's edification, our complaint procedure has in section 10 discusses combining petitions and complaints. It is at our discretion to determine how the process works, and it based upon the conditions and the issues before us. This particular case, both these cases have been heard several times before. It's been heard in committee. It's been heard at the task force. It's been heard back at committee. There's been plenty of opportunity for public comment for each of the items. The nucleus of the facts are very much similar. So any comments or discussions that we may have are probably most likely will be to the facts that are similar to both the files. It'll give the public opportunity to pick up any of the trailing facts and issues that we might bring up during this discussion. So it'll be only the standard 3-minute per public commenter for this, and we shall proceed. So I'm going to hand it over to Member LaHood, who's chair of the Compliance and Amendments Committee. She can work with her fellow committee members, try and get us up to speed of why this is coming back to the task force.
So this is coming back to the task force for non-compliance with our order of determination. Records were requested, they've not been provided. The challenging aspect of this situation is that requests are being made of the San Francisco Zoological Society, which manages the zoo on behalf of the city of San Francisco, which owns the zoo and the animals. There is a contract governing this relationship, but our interpretation of the contract and the interpretation of the Zoological Society and Parks and Rec seems to not be entirely in alignment, which is why I believe we are continuing to see non-compliance in this area. Do my fellow members of Compliance and Amendments have anything to add?
No, nothing to add.
Okay. So was there any recommendation, like specific recommendation that the committee?
Our recommendation is sending back to the task force with the recommendation for escalation. We decided not to make a specific escalation recommendation because we thought it deserved discussion among the task force to determine the exact course of action. But it is very clear that there has been non-compliance with the orders of determination in both of these cases.
Would also like to note that we've also had legal counsel confirm that along the way here. So the crux of the matter is that the Zoological Association is a contractor with the city. It's not just in their original contract or an MOU with the city that there would be transparency, but just in general, city contractors are obliged in writing in their contracts to comply with sunshine. And so just on that fact base alone, that's just a standard within our city government. But even though this contract with them is pretty old, it was written in that contract that there would be a level of transparency, and for the documents and the records and the information that's being requested falls under that. I see a hand from Member Neighbors.
Thank you. We also discussed when we were thinking about escalation, one of the compelling issues in this case is just how long the petitioner's been seeking relief, and that how many times it's gone through the various committees. We wanted to make sure that we were thinking of an escalation that wasn't just going to, or we wanted to try to not send the petitioner on yet another unsolvable, road, but to maybe bring it back to the committee so that we could use our collective resources here to figure out the best way forward on the behalf of that petitioner for relief. We discussed a little bit about escalating to the Ethics Commission, but we did have some concerns about that recommendation. And so it would be that discussion of whether or not other members think that that would be a good route for the petitioner to get relief would be really welcome.
And I might add, it's not just for this petitioner, but any other requester of information moving forward. This would be a precedent-setting issue, considering the questions that are being asked by the public for the people that are taking care of the zoo on the people's behalf. I would. So what are the options that are open to us rhetorically? What are the options that are open to us for enforcement to get the records released? I don't think the Ethics Commission is the right place to go, because mostly what's going to happen at the Ethics Commission is really more about dealing with misconduct issues. And they don't really have any jurisdiction over the zoo. But they have, and we've already been, I think we've already, and correct me if I'm wrong, we've already been told by the Recreation Parks Department, and I think there was one other entity, I don't remember which one it is, that that basically said it's on the zoo. It's like, if you were asking us for that information and we had it, we'd give it to you, but we don't have that information. And supposedly there is this special commission that was set up, a joint commission that includes the zoo, to have that information. And I think supposedly that commission doesn't have that information either. So the zoo is being asked as the contractor to provide that information, since they hold that information. They're not they're not an independent entity from the city and county of San Francisco when it comes to managing the people's property and assets. So let's just think about what other place, if you had to get a contract to be enforced, who would we refer this to in the city? Who manages such things? And feel free to engage our legal counsel, who might be able to help us kind of think that through. Our legal counsel for tonight is DCA Helen Castillo. I see Member Forsley and then Member Schmidt.
Yeah, I was just gonna say probably, I guess what we're coming down to now is like some type of legal enforcement, because it sounds like they don't want to comply, and because they're just reading the text differently. But I think it's already been said that they're subject to the Sunshine Ordinance, even in other types of text, just generally, because of the amount of money they get from the city. But I guess if I know there's a contracts department with the city, so I don't know if their contract is held there. I forget I know Rec and Park said they didn't have it, but yeah, I mean, I guess any city department that would hold their contracts, I guess. But you said that's not Rec and Park?
Well, they are. I think the contract is Rec and Park, but the Rec and Park is a city department, so it's with the city. Rec and Park is not a enterprise agency, which would be considered a kind of a government nonprofit that has its own independence, like the airport or the port or the Public Utilities Commission.
Yeah, they're just a city department. Yeah. Exactly. But what I'm saying is we could probably just, well, since Rec and Park, it sounds like they already said they don't have it, but the city actually has like a contracting department that I assume a contract that big would probably rest in. That's just an idea.
Okay. Member Schmidt?
Yeah, I mean, this is an issue it comes up, I'm guessing, a lot, and it will continue to come up, and it's probably going to be something that people are going to become very frustrated with, which is the fact that I think that Mr. Barker, in reality, he's kind of exhausted what he can get from the Sunshine Task Force, in my opinion. And, we can send him through the Ethics Commission process and watch him get nothing. I don't know if he's here listening, but, we might as well tell them that that doesn't tend to turn into anything for people. And his one option that I know of is not through anything that the Sunshine Task Force can do, but it's not necessarily optimal, but he's got to file his own lawsuit if he wants to really go forward on this. And I don't see anything else. So that's my 2 cents.
Member Yankee, Vice Chair Yankee.
Sure. 2 points. I think at one point we did have someone from the city administrator's office come to one of our meetings because we, kind of echoing what Member Forsley said about, wouldn't this contract be under someone? And the city administrator's office kind of basically told us there's not much they can do. This is a contract through Rec and Park. So there's that. So, I agree though that I do see this as a contracts compliance sort of issue. And so I'm just wondering if this isn't something we should perhaps bring to the board's attention, since they may be the ultimate decider of contracts. And I'm not sure if at some point this needs to get renewed, but I do think it's important because so much city money is going to them that there's, I think, a serious breach of the contract here. So I'll end there.
Member Forsley.
I just wanted to say again, I agree with what Member Yankee said. I think the equivalent of, or a boost up, would be the Board of Supervisors, and he could go someplace and file his own lawsuit. But I think my question is, if on behalf, does the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force have, I know we discussed last time, we don't really have an ends with the DA or ends with the city attorney, stuff like that, but would it make sense to try to build something like that? Because it seems like the city can just say no, and then, then where does it go? I think we talked about that last time too, so.
Okay, Member LaHood.
I was just going to echo. I think I agree with Member Yankee, or Vice Chair Yankee. I think the Board of Supervisors is a good place to go, especially because we know there's so much money involved here.
Go ahead, Member Forsley.
I was just going to ask, since we're making a decision to recommend it to the Board of Supervisors, just regarding process, how would that interject itself into a Board of Supervisors meeting? What would be the process that we could, if we're saying that offer directly, it will go to this committee, then it will go to this location?
So basically the way it works is the ordinance basically describes that we have the opportunity to make any kinds of reports where we feel the implementation, there are problems with the implementation of the Sunshine Ordinance. So here's a problem, right? There are three things I want to suggest. One is, I agree, moving forward with notifying the Board of Supervisors, obviously. I think we should also notify the mayor's office, because this is an executive branch issue, okay? The CEO, essentially the CEO of the city is the mayor. And so essentially the signature for these contracts is ultimately the mayor, for whatever year it was signed in. But that carries forward to every subsequent mayor. The third thing is I want to engage our legal counsel, DCA Castillo, and ask, do you think this is something that we should report directly to the city attorney's office as being a somewhat of a breach of contract kind of issue? Or is there some other office or agency we should engage first that will then subsequently, engage the city attorney's office?
So Chair Wolf, are you asking
Yes.
me that question?
Yes,
okay.
I am.
So to the extent that the contract is through the Rec and Park would be the department, I believe, who could initiate some sort of request for legal action or review by the city attorney's office, because I think the contract lies within Rec and Park ultimately.
But aren't all contracts still part of the city and county government? And isn't there kind of
but they're
central?
managed. Sorry. Yeah, they are, but it is managed through various different departments and different entities. So as the starting point, that might be one I need to get back to you on whether you as the Sunshine Task Force could also initiate a separate request for enforcement. But I believe if you're asking which entity could initiate that, it would be the department or the office that manages the contract, to the extent you're talking about a breach of contract issue.
Okay. Hold on a minute, Vice Chair Yankee. I just want to follow up with DCA Castillo. Unfortunately, the thing is our enforcement power is limited. So we can compel. I don't know necessarily what that means, but essentially our order of determination is basically an order to compel production of the records. And then if they aren't produced, then it's supposed to go to some form of enforcement. So we're trying to find that path at this point. And if Rec and Park is, as they already has dug in their heels and put the onus back on us to deal with the Zoological Society directly, and won't take responsibility for it, what do you see, or what can you suggest or advise us at this point?
I think to give you a more detailed answer, I'd need to look into that in greater detail. I could get back to you during this meeting, but I would need to go back and take a look at, as you said, what enforcement powers you have beyond ordering that the documents be produced in terms of initiating the next step of enforcement through legal action.
Okay. I mean, go ahead, Vice Chair Yankee, go ahead. I'll respond after.
Sure. Two things. The first is that I just wanted to point out that we already did, include the Rec and Parks Department on our correspondences, and they've obviously not been particularly interested in moving this forward. So I don't think we can rely on them to make that referral. And then, the sentence I'm looking at would be in 6730C. And it says the task force shall make referrals to a municipal office with enforcement powers under this ordinance or under the California Public Records Act and the Brown Act whenever it concludes that any person has violated any provision of this ordinance or the acts. And so if referrals can be made to the city attorney's office for compliance issues, I certainly think that would fall under our ability to make that referral under that section. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you. And let me throw this out too. Is district court considered a municipal office? DCA Castillo, you can chime in on that too.
Yeah, I don't think the district court is considered as a municipal office, and in order to be heard before the district court, you would need to have a legal mechanism via a lawsuit or a case. So you couldn't just refer it to the district court and expect that they would do anything about it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, what is there an action? Is there a way forward that we should take here? Member Forsley.
I was just gonna say, the fact that Rec and Park seemed to have brushed it off so easy, maybe we didn't go, or that person didn't go to the right person at Rec and Park, and potentially, I know it's been a long time that this has been going back and forth, but it seems like the person that they engaged was solely with like the San Francisco Zoo representative, which is not a city person. It's not the Rec and Park person. So if they wanted to get the documents, maybe we should have somebody higher up in Rec and Park respond to this.
Okay. I have Member Padmanabhan, then Member Frazier, and then Vice Chair Yankee.
So I'd like to understand historically what were the paths that were followed. Have we in the past gone directly to the board?
Yes, we've gone to the board. We've gone to many places. We've gone to the DA. We've gone to the Attorney General's office. We've gone to the Ethics Commission. We haven't. I wouldn't say that we've gone to the board directly. I mean, in instances like for something like this, because the board has limited power over the executive branch. They can't make directives. They can pass an ordinance, but that means that the mayor would have to agree. Or the mayor just not, sign it after a certain period of time. But that could take a long time. They have to go through a whole legislative process with that. We have been mulling around whether we could file a lawsuit or not. But I think speaking to Member Forsley's suggestion, when we a little further, she's getting a little warmer, I think, on this. Because who is really the responsible party to assure that contracts are being complied with? So let's move down our list here, Member Frazier.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Wolf. I was just going to kind of reinforce, it sounds to me like this needs some kind of political visibility to some extent and a little bit of a different outlet. So notifying the mayor's office and making them aware of this, I think would be a good next move based on the fact that it sounds like we haven't explored that option previously. And so I know Chair Wolf, you brought that up. If that's included in a motion, I'd be inclined to support that motion.
Okay, Vice Chair Yankee and then Member Schmidt.
Sure, just to respond to Member Forsley's question. The correspondence was actually sent directly to Phil Ginsburg, who's, I believe, the director of Rec and Park. So we shot all the way there at the top to make sure that this got heard, and that doesn't seem to have gone anywhere. So I don't know if we also want, if I can sending to the board, that just becomes one of the many, correspondences that end up in a 500,000 page file that is attached to the board. So I didn't know if it'd be worth to maybe reach out to one of the relevant, chairs of one of the board committees that would have oversight over this. I don't know if there's one that oversees parks or one that oversees, so that we could maybe have a more one-on-one discussion with the supervisor who might want to hold a hearing on this or agendize it perhaps at a committee level at the board, so it gets a little more attention. Just a suggestion.
Okay. I'm just going to also put a little bit of a time limit on this. I'm trying to close this up in the next 10 to 15 minutes. And then, so we have, next is Member Neighbors.
Just as a little backstory also for Member Forsley, I believe the petitioner was told when he went to Parks and Rec that he needed to go to the Joint Zoo Committee. And then when he went to the Joint Zoo Committee, he was told that they didn't have anything, that any papers on that, or didn't know what he was talking about. So he was sent back. So I think part of that shuttling back and forth is one of those things that we really want to avoid with whatever our remedy is moving forward.
Okay, and Member Forsley.
I wanted to ask Vice Chair Yankee if after he was given that shuffle, if the encounter with Ginsburg was before or after the shuffle.
Go ahead.
Yeah, one of the actions we took in a prior meeting, and I think it may have been before you were on the task force, was that we authorized a letter to be sent to, I believe, 3 entities, the joint group, Rec and Park, and I forget what the third one is offhand. So it was one of the return items to us. So we actually, I drafted the letter along with Chair Wolf, and we sent it directly to those entities on behalf of the complainant. And so I believe Cheryl delivered it for us, but it was one of the, Phil Ginsburg was one of the recipients of that letter. So that was after the initial contact the complainant may have had with those entities. Does that help answer the question?
I guess I'm trying to figure out if after he was told by the person that's the zoo's responsibility, Phil Ginsburg knew that somebody told him that.
I'm not sure if he knew the specific, but the letter that we wrote is, I believe, in the agenda packet for this. I don't know exactly.
Yeah, it's just I'm just trying to get the sequence of events, I guess, to see if after he was told by some person, like, you can't get these public documents, somebody higher up was notified, like, at the city, not from the zoo perspective, that he couldn't get them. But your vice chair's idea about going to a particular commission, I think this is a current Google page. They have the Rec and Park Commission. Would that be something if you were trying to, like, show that they were not giving the documents?
Well, we sent the letter to the commission, I believe, through Phil Ginsburg. So the commission and the director should be aware of this matter at this point.
So let me interject here for a second. I would we don't need to try to re-adjudicate this or go on a fishing expedition. I think the ordinance has some provisions in it that will help us out. If you look at section 67.31, responsibility for administration, and this is for the administration of the Sunshine Ordinance. I'm just going to read the first two sentences. The mayor shall administer and coordinate the implementation of the provisions of this chapter for departments under his or her control. The mayor shall administer and coordinate the implementation of the provisions of this chapter for departments under control of the board and commissions appointed by the mayor. Okay, Rec and Park mayor is appointed; those are appointments by the mayor. And Rec and Park department is under their control. I think that kind of narrows down who has the authority and the decision-making power, the ultimate decision-making power on how this should be handled. And if we're deeming through our 2 orders of determination, and we've gone back and forth with this many, many times, I think now the onus is on the entity, the person, the office that has the authority to instruct the contractee or the contractor to comply. If they don't want to comply, then the mayor can take them to court at that point. I don't think that we have any more authority than that at this point. And if the mayor does not want to implement, to abide by 6731, then it can come back with that, either lack of action or refusal to action, and we'll deal with it at that point in time. That's been, we have done that before in previous years. Member Forson.
From the discussion, it sounds like we've done all we can collectively. And so I'm wondering, is there any motion that needs to be put on the table?
I think we definitely need to act in some way. Our order of determination is not being respected or complied with. And I think we need to respond to that.
So we're just going to kind of, again, be saying that somebody violated something, but there's really not, I mean, does the mayor's office have the public records person that we would work directly with?
Well, we would first just kind of instruct the mayor's office that we have an order of determination. We've done due diligence on this. We have been consulted and counseled by our own legal counsel. We have, found on 2 separate occasions for similar requests, with the whole gamut, and that we urge them under 6731 to implement the ordinance according to our findings. And I think we should also send it to the Board of Supervisors. The only real authority they have is they could either by resolution, they could say, Mayor, by resolution, Mayor, we think this is wrong, and you should release the have the Zoological Association release the records. And we're going to remember that the next time but we're in the budget year right now. So they won't be making decisions, until the end of May, beginning of June about budget. So, that's up in the air here too. There could be some contractual obligations that they could put them in default of their contract. Any number of things. But I think we need to put something into action here. Member LaHood.
I'll make a motion that the task force send identical letters to the mayor's office and to the Board of Supervisors indicating that our 2 orders of determination have not been complied with, even following repeated inquiry and efforts to seek compliance. And that we think that there is joint responsibility between Parks and Recreation, the zoo, and the San Francisco Zoological Society. And I will leave it there unless anyone wants to add amendments.
Well, I would just suggest to reference 6731.
And referencing 6731.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
So moved by Member LaHood, second by Member Schmidt. Any discussion on the motion before I go to public comment? Okay, let's open up public comment. Victor? Mr. Young, are you there?
Sorry, mute issues. I just wanted to restate the motion as, I just want to be sure we get it correctly, is to refer the matter to the Board of Supervisors and the Mayor, referencing Sunshine Ordinance Section 67.31, noting that the order of determination has not been complied with after repeated inquiries, and state that the Recon Park and the San Francisco Zoological Society was contacted and have not provided a resolution. I believe that Member LaHood is raising her hand.
I was saying, you said order. There are 2 orders of determination that need to be mentioned in the letter.
Yes, for both files. My assumption is this motion is referring to both file number 19048 and 19092.
I think the inclusion of 6731 is to urge the mayor to recognize our order of determination and to have the ordinance be implemented and complied with.
Okay, we have the motion to that motion, and if the motion is approved, we will draft a letter and allow for the chair of the task force, or Chair Wolf, to sign off on that, if that's appropriate.
Okay, let's go to public comment.
Yes, for public comment, are there any members of the public who wish to comment on this motion? Please state your name and let me know you want to speak. If you are muted, you can press *6 to unmute yourself.
Yes, anonymous, please.
Yes, please proceed.
Thank you. This is anonymous. I would agree with the motion, and I might suggest maybe it doesn't need to be in the motion, but to make it slightly more specific that the SOTF expects that the mayor will fully implement the Sunshine Ordinance within the departments under her control, including Recon Park with this contract, but also to request that there is a I don't know if it's an item or a hearing before the Government and Audit Committee, I think it's the Government Audit Committee of the Board of Supervisors, where they would treat you just like any other board or commission or department that wants to bring an item onto the Board of Supervisors agenda, where they would have, I assume, the chair speak on behalf of this item. Supervisors would actually get to hear in person what the issues are, and there would actually be some of that visibility that I believe Member Fraser brought up. This is not an issue really solely related to the zoo. Departments across the city that have associated nonprofits always side with those nonprofits. They have no interest in forcing their, a group that they have financial, social, and other ties to fully implement the Sunshine Ordinance, or that they would produce the records in their constructive possession, including the contractors that contract those departments. This is not a minor issue. And I think now is the time, compared to any other time, there is actual supervisor and board interest about how these nonprofits operate with their departments. So now is the time. And I think the task force should explicitly request a hearing before the audit committee on this issue, where the SOTF could present its concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional members of the public who wish to provide public comment? I do not hear any additional response at this time.
Okay, public comment is closed. So everybody okay with the motion? Are we ready for a vote? Member Forsyth.
Yes, I was just, when I was asking about process, I was kind of alluding to what Anonymous said regarding, like, once the letter is written, like, does it get sent to a specific board committee so that we know that it's being addressed somehow? And I think that's part of the process that might be nice, at least for new members, to see that with the trajectory of this recommendation, like, we see the letter get written, we see, like, you as the chair sign it, then we see where it goes from there, and then we have, like, that circle, like that full circle, like it did get heard by maybe not the mayor, because that's a pretty tall order, but like at least the Board of Supervisors, like that sort of thing, and kind of what the response is. And so it doesn't just like how it feels when we're referring things to the Ethics Commission, like they have something, but where did it go? So that's all I'm saying with that, but it has nothing to do with changing the motion.
Go ahead, Victor. I was just gonna suggest.
As I do many of the committees for the Board of Supervisors, this was most likely go to the Board of Supervisors and be placed on the communications page. It will be up to a member of the Board of Supervisors to introduce a hearing if they wish to consider taking any additional actions. But when it arrives, it's as communications, and it'll be up to a member of the board to take actions at their discretion.
That actually really helps. That gives clarification. So it would be like if we don't get any type of like traction, it's basically like somebody saying it's like not a high priority to like discuss it, basically.
Yes, usually someone would need to reach out to a member of the Board of Supervisors, try to get someone interested to take up the matter and request a hearing.
I mean, I would suggest that we, if there doesn't seem to be much of a response, what I will probably do is at that point is make an appointment with the president of the Board of Supervisors and bring it to his attention. Vice Chair Yankee.
Yeah, I was kind of just to speak on that. I was going to say I didn't know if we should include it in part of the motion or if it's not necessary to actually include it, but to have some type of authorization that we either reach out specifically to the chair of the Government Audit and Oversight Committee or the president of the board entirely, if the communication doesn't receive a response, because I know that communication packet can be quite excessively large and it might not get the attention it deserves if it just makes its way in there. So just want to make sure that the appropriate people on the board know about it and see it. So
So if there's no, I don't know if you feel it's necessary to amend the motion, but we could make it specifically addressed to the president of the board on behalf of the board of supervisors, something like that.
Sure, I think that makes sense. I don't know if that's a friendly amendment or if I need to propose it as an amendment.
Okay.
There's no need for an amendment. That's just a matter of how we draft the letter.
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
I will note it that it should be addressed to the president on behalf of the board of supervisors.
Okay. Any last thoughts, members? I saw some hands go up and go down. No? Okay. We ready for a vote? Okay, good. Victor, when you're ready.
Yes, on that motion. Member LaHood.
Aye.
LaHood, aye. Member Schmidt.
Aye.
Schmidt, aye. Member Highland.
Aye.
Highland, aye. Member Frazier.
Aye.
Frazier, aye. Member Forsley.
Aye.
Forsley, aye. Member Padmaban.
Aye.
Padmaban, aye. Member Neighbors.
Aye.
Neighbors, aye. Member Stein.
Aye.
Stein, aye. Member Wong.
Aye.
Wong, aye. Vice Chair Yankee.
Aye.
Yankee,
That's
aye.
right.
Chair Wolf.
Aye.
If you do,
Wolf, aye. Was there a question regarding that? I
No,
believe
there's
I
who's
have
that speaking?
members,
you
and
just unmute.
the motion passes without objection.
Thank you. Please, members of the public, please mute your phones by pressing *6 until we're ready to speak. Thank you. Okay. Well, before we move on to the next item, I just want to note that after public comment, or as close to 6 o'clock as possible, or after, when we get into the next break, we'll take a 10-minute recess so folks can have a bathroom break, and then we'll recommence. Victor, please call the next item.
Next on the agenda is item number 5, public comment. Members of the public may address the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force on matters that are within the committee's or the task force jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda. Are there any members of the public for general public comment on items not listed on today's agenda?
Ann Chabot.
Okay, please proceed.
Members of the task force, my name is Ann Chabot, and I just want to note for the public record the passing of Lawrence Ferlinghetti, a longtime resident of North Beach, who I knew personally for over a decade, and who was a person who was really an artist. He was really somebody who left New York for various reasons. He came from a disadvantaged background in the Bronx, and he came to San Francisco because there was opportunity there to open a bookstore, which was not possible to do in New York, not then and not now. And he was somebody who was really a presence in North Beach, who a lot of us came to know and came to respect. He helped me out many times. I had problems with housing, with crazy neighbors, with issues being an artist. And he was somebody who really took the time to understand and to participate in his community. And I request that this meeting be adjourned in his honor. That's
Mr. Bo, do you have any additional comments?
it.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any additional public comment?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Warfield, please proceed.
Thank you. This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. We can be reached at libraryusers2004@yahoo.com and also by mail at P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. I want to talk about what I consider to be some real procedural problems with respect to a currently pending complaint. And I'm not going to be talking about the merits of the complaint, but the procedural, some procedural matter. In July, on July 10th, we filed a fairly straightforward and very brief complaint. The subject was complaint and request for hearing - Library Commission public comment denial. And it said, Dear Sunshine Ordinance Task Force, and it was addressed to the Sunshine Task Force and Angela Calvillo. This is a complaint and request for hearing concerning the following, : new paragraph. At yesterday's special meeting of the San Francisco Public Library Commission, July 9th, 2020, Library Users Association was denied the ability to make public comment on Item 2, SFPL reopening plan, which was the major item on the agenda. This was despite my best efforts to alert the Commission of my intention at this remotely conducted meeting. Thank you for your attention to this. I'm hearing a lot of noise. What's happening, please? And the final paragraph, thank you for your attention to this. Sincerely yours, Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association. We next became aware of some difficulty with this when on March 10th, we got basically, I guess you'd call it a proposed agenda that said the complaint was from Peter Warfield against the library, and that the library administration had been sent a request to respond. We immediately the next day got in touch with the administrator to correct that.
30 seconds.
And the administrator apparently corrected the proposed agenda, but did not send the complaint to the commission for its response. And we haven't been able to get any resolution on this despite many, many emails and phone calls regarding this. And it still has not, including going to a hearing at EOT, hasn't gotten any resolution with respect to sending the proper people, the Library Commission, the complaint for their response. And there's simply been no response. We've sent emails to and made calls to the administrator, we've included Mr. Wolf, Angela Calvillo, and so on.
Has elapsed.
And we'd like to know what's going on with that and why we're not hearing any resolution.
Thank you for your comment. Can we have the next speaker, please?
Hello, my name is Win Shapilier. I'd like to make a comment.
Please proceed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clerk. I currently have 4 complaints before the task force, all of them against the San Francisco Behavioral Health Commission. The first of these complaints was submitted on July 18th of this year, and it was assigned number 20100. The second complaint was filed on September 14th, and it detailed over 100 allegations of violations of the Sunshine Ordinance by the Behavioral Health Commission, exclusive of the meeting dealt with in the 20100 complaint. That September 14th complaint was never assigned a number. We also submitted a complaint on March 8th of this year, and that has been assigned the number 21021. And then I've recently submitted on April 4th a 4th complaint that has not been assigned a number yet. On February 3rd of this year, I emailed the administrator asking her about the September 14th complaint and why it had never been assigned a number or sent out for an answer to the Behavioral Health Commission. And she said, the number 20100 has been assigned to your case. And that referred to, of course, the July 18th complaint. I emailed her the next day telling her this and saying that the September 14th complaint dealt with distinct violations occurring at distinct meetings, and asked her again to please assign a number to it and start the process. And I did not hear back. At this point, I have about a minute left over, so if anyone has questions for clarification, I will try to answer them. Okay, hearing none, back to you, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. Are there any additional speakers? It appears there are no additional members of the public for public comment at this time.
Sorry, I was on mute. So I'll just notate for the two public speakers, I will take up and look into those this week. Thank you for your comments. Okay, let's call the next item, and then after the next item, we'll take a break.
Yes, next on the agenda is item number 6, file number 19115, complaint filed by Ann Trudeau against Margaret Baumgartner for allegedly violating Administrative Code, Section 67.25 by failing to respond to an immediate disclosure request for public records in a timely and/or complete manner.
Okay. All right. This was this was one where the task force took it upon itself to find that the records are public, and and that we have jurisdiction. Are both parties present?
Ed Trudeau, present. I am the complainant.
This is John Cote with the City Attorney's Office.
Okay. Is Margaret Baumgartner the respondent through the mayor's office or through some other department?
I believe Ms. Baumgartner is with the city attorney's office.
Okay. So, Mr. Cote,
that in the title, it should be against Margaret Baumgartner and the office of the city attorney.
Okay. Mr. Cote, you're representing that?
I am.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so we're going through our regular process here. It'd be 5-minute opening comments for each of the parties and any witnesses. For either of them, there'll be a period for discovery for the task force to ask questions and get clarifications. There will be 3-minute rebuttals for each of the parties, then deliberation for the task force to come to a decision or not regarding any determination. So let's start with Ms. Trudeau. You have 5 minutes for your opening statement.
Ann Trudeau, complainant. I'm referring to page 550 of your packet, which is to amend the original complaint. I'm asking you to find the violations of 6725, 6726.
I'm sorry, Ms. Trudeau. Ms. Trudeau, I'm going to have to interrupt you. We will not amend a complaint on the fly.
There. It's not on the fly. This is the complaint. It's to page 550. This is the opening complaint. I'm asking in the original complaint dated November 21, 2019, to find specific violations. No response after the 10-day record request time, failure to identify the documents in their possession, and failure to identify which documents they have and which they're going to send me in the redacted form, which is 6727 A through D. So there are a number of violations that I specified. Moving on, in page 579, I gave a timeline of events, which the original IDR was October 30th, 2019. On November 15th, I emailed both Margaret Baumgartner and somebody called Buta, advising them that a 10-day response time had passed. I hadn't gotten a response, and I didn't get any sort of response at all until after I filed the complaint on December 20th, after the task force sent the notice that a complaint had been filed. The respondent had 5 days to respond. They did not respond within the 5-day period. On February 5th, somebody by the name of Cobreth sent me somebody else's file. I included it in my filing, but it did not wind up in your packet. It was a completely different case altogether.
Hold on.
One moment, please. I'm gonna mute everybody, Ms. Trabeau. I'm gonna mute all the lines, and you can press *6. Ms. Trabeau, can you hold on 1 second, please? I'm muting everybody because we're getting too much overtalk. You can press *6 to unmute yourself in a moment, and I will start your time again. Please hold on 1 moment. Okay, Mr. Chabot, you may press *6 to unmute yourself, and you may resume your comment, and I will. You may resume your comments.
Okay, I am unmuted, correct?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I hope there's no more interruptions. So I'm requesting a task force find the violation 6725, 6726, A through D, 6727, A through D. And this was brought forth in the original complaint, which I noted to you was on page 5. These complaints are failure to print documents, failure to respond within 72 hours and 10 days. That was page 550. So then on page 579 is a timeline of events. The original IDR was October 30th, 2019. On November 15th, I informed Margaret Baumgartner that 10 days had passed. I had not received any response. I never got a response from her. That was on page 254. On December 20th, the task force sent an email to Margaret Baumgartner. 5 days after that, there was still no response. And then on February 5th, somebody by the name of Cobreth sends me somebody else's file. Doesn't pertain to me at all. I included it in my filing, but it didn't get in the file. I email her back and I say, I'm sorry, you sent me somebody else's file. Can I have the original documents? That was on February 18th, page 603. So not only did I not receive the documents, it went through several different people. Buta, Cobreth, never heard from Margaret Baumgartner. I did my due diligence. I made a couple phone calls. WUTA didn't even know what a sunshine complaint was. And that's it. Never got the documents. I was not, these documents were not available to me. I never participated in any form of electronic filing. I did that case in the California Court of Appeal all by hand. I had to bind my filings. I had to certain type of paper. It was quite expensive and time consuming. So I did not have access to the documents. I wasn't in California, so I wasn't able to walk in and get them. And that's it. It's not the first time that office has done this.
The time has elapsed.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any persons or witnesses providing facts or evidence on behalf of the complainant, the petitioner?
Stop! Damn, I'm in the middle of a hearing. Will you go? Yeah.
Is everything okay on the phone there? Okay. Are there any persons or witnesses providing facts or evidence on behalf of the petitioner or the complainant? Okay, hearing none. Respondent, you have 5 minutes.
Sorry about
thank you,
that.
Chair Wolf. Good evening. Good evening, task force members. John Cote, I'm the communications director with the City Attorney's Office. First, I'd like to point you to our written response in this matter from November 19th, 2019. It's on page 690 of your packet. I assume you have all read it, but I would encourage you to read it again because our understanding is that other correspondence has been directed to this body about this issue and it misrepresents what our response actually says. So I would encourage you to read the actual response. I'd also ask you to please incorporate that written response in its entirety in your decision. I would also like to make a few quick points. So this is a request for records in a court case that Ms. Detesh, who also uses the alias Anne Trabeau, filed in the Court of Appeal. Now, at the time of her records request,
do not interrupt. Hold on, Mr. Cote. All parties must be quiet. There'd be no debate and no interruptions. Please mute your mic, and wait till everybody has their own opportunity to speak. You'll have an opportunity for rebuttals at the end of this particular process. Thank you. Please continue, Mr. Cote. I'm sorry.
No problem. Thank you, Chair Wolf. So at the time of her records request, this involved ongoing litigation around a workplace violence restraining order that the Superior Court had issued on behalf of a city employee against Ms. Detesh/Trabeau. Now, Ms. Detesh was the one who brought this case in the Court of Appeal and then later asked us to provide her with records that she already had full access to, including records that she herself filed with the court. Now, on the issue of timeliness, so we have asked Ms. Detesh many times to send public records requests to our office's designated inbox for public records requests, rather than to individual staff. Now, despite misrepresentations by some, this is not a requirement of our office. It is, however, a sensible approach. I mean, the purpose is to ensure that someone is always available to receive and respond to requests and to prevent requests from being lost or routed to junk mail. So Ms. Detesh has ignored these requests to use the main inbox, and once again, she emailed her request to a staff person directly. The staff person was out of the country at the time and had set up an automatic out-of-office message on her email stating that she would not return until November 5th. So Ms. Detesh was aware through that out-of-office notification that the staff member was absent and not checking her email. Now, rather than wait for a response or follow up with the staff person or go through the designated inbox, Ms. Detesh filed this complaint on November 4th. Now, our office did not become aware of the request until we received notice of the complaint from task force staff. So we then investigated the matter and learned that the staff person had never received this initial request from Ms. Detesh. She was out of the country, as I noted, and the request had gone to her junk mail. So this is exactly the type of situation where using our designated inbox, while not required, certainly would have benefited all parties. Now, upon learning of Ms. Detesh's request, we responded to it. And so the request was for all documents concerning this particular Court of Appeal case that Ms. Detesh had initiated. She had made an identical records request to our office in June of 2019. Again, this one came in October 30th of 2019. She had also sent that one to a different staff person who also happened to be out of office at the time. Now, Ms. Detesh does participate in electronic filing service for this case and receives all documents filed in this matter. She therefore already has received all of the non-privileged documents in the city attorney's office possession that are responsive to her requests. So many of the documents filed in the matter are ones that she is requesting are documents that she herself has filed. Now, I would also note that the Code of Civil Procedure and the California Rules of Court set forth a comprehensive system for how parties in litigation are meant to get access to records in their cases. And those rules apply to all cases, including cases involving government entities. Now, Ms. Detesh should be following those rules for access to records, which they can be received electronically or by mail. And in fact, it's actually a requirement that Ms. Detesh keep the court and the parties in the case abreast of her current contact info for this very reason. And I'm happy to take any questions the task force may have.
Thank you. Any persons or witnesses to provide any facts or evidence on behalf of the respondent? Okay, hearing none. Task force members, this is your chance for questions and answers, questions and clarifications. Member LaHood, you started with that one.
Yes, actually, I'd like to ask Mr. Cote, you said that there were identical requests made. Regardless of whether you believe that Ms. Turbo has the documents she's requesting, did the city provide the documents that were requested on either occasion, once or twice? Did the city provide the documents?
So on the first occasion, which was in, I just want to double check here, I believe it was in June of 2019. At that point, we responded and indicated that the only documents that we had was the notice of appeal, which Ms. Detesh herself had filed. And that was our, as well as potentially privileged documents, but the only document that was disclosable was a single document, which was one that Ms. Detesh herself had filed. And then our response in November of 2019 was that, in this case, we have no responsive documents other than the publicly filed documents in the case, which you already have, and documents that are exempt from disclosure under the attorney-client privilege and or work product privilege.
Member Schmidt?
Yeah, Mr. Cote, let me just kind of walk through what this would involve, just so people understand. There's a notice of appeal, and so that was sent out by Ms. Trabeau, and it was received by your office, correct?
Correct.
Okay. would there have been anything else? I don't know anything about this appeal, et cetera, but did anything else ever happen in this appeal other than a notice of appeal?
My understanding is that it did. I'm not directly involved in the case. Want to be clear that I am not an attorney. I'm the communications director for the office. But my understanding is there were the appeal did proceed, and so there were developments in the case.
Okay, so you don't know the status of the transcripts or the briefing, the appellant brief, respondent brief, the surreply brief. Do you know if there was a decision made?
My understanding is there was a decision made, and Ms. Trabeau lost her appeal, and the original decision at the Superior Court was affirmed.
But it's your understanding that the only document that was in the electronic file was the notice of appeal? Is that what you had said? It was a little unclear to me why the briefs wouldn't be in there.
We're talking about different time frames. So you had asked initially about her initial request, which was in June of 2019. And at that point, what was in the file was the notice of appeal. Subsequently, you're asking me if the case was resolved. My understanding is it was. That wasn't until 2020, well after this request for documents that's before the task force today was submitted. And so my understanding of the case was resolved. But again, the time of her initial request, it was very early on in the case.
Okay. And the briefs that she filed, she sent them to your office, or she electronically sent them, correct?
I believe she electronically submitted them to the court, correct?
I did not electronically submit them to the court.
Please, you'll have your chance.
And
Thank you.
Okay.
And just to Mr. Cote.
Okay.
And so your office would have filed a respondent's brief and served it, and it would have been sent over to her during the litigation, correct?
Correct. If that was part of the briefing schedule, absolutely we would have.
Okay. And the decision would have come out from the court and gone out to the parties, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I don't have any further questions.
Any other questions? Vice Chair Yang.
Mr. Cote, just to clarify here, so I think at some point you had mentioned that some of the documents that Ms. Trabeau had asked of you were ones that she already had possession of. Is that correct?
Yes, because she filed them with the court.
Despite that, did you still give them to her, or was your response basically that you already have them and therefore we don't have to supply them?
Our response was that that we had no records beyond records that she already had or records that were privileged. So we did not provide her back her own records that she had filed.
I'm sorry, there was some call there or something someone had on. Like I couldn't understand you.
No problem. So in our response, we said that we have no responsive documents other than the publicly filed documents in the case, which she already has, and documents that were exempt from disclosure, either because of the attorney-client privilege or the work product privilege. We did not provide back to her her own documents that she had already filed with the court and that are available through the court.
Could I just ask why you wouldn't have done that? I mean, just to say that you fully complied with the request that she gave?
I mean, in our view, it wasn't necessary. These were documents that she already had and that they weren't required to be produced again and again when she already has them.
Okay.
Member LaHood.
Actually, this is directed at the task force. Just for my clarification for me, I believe that the city needs to provide responsive documents regardless of whether we think someone already has them. But I could understand the argument that they don't need to be provided repeatedly. I just want to clarify that with other task members. Is that how you would interpret things? That I could make a request this week, and if the documents were provided, I could not then go next week and request the same documents if they were already received from a particular agency? Or is there some other way to interpret what is required under the Sunshine Ordinance?
I mean, this is Member Forsley. I would agree, I believe, with the first interpretation you said, that if they provided it the day before and you make the exact same request, I mean, I would think that I guess we would have to determine a time frame, because they could potentially, after a certain point, have lost the documents somehow. So I would think it might come down to like a time frame or the reason that they lost it, but then that becomes, I guess, too interpretive, but I guess that's what this all is. So I don't know, but I would think that if they had it with like the same week, they could say, well, we just gave you those documents. But I also feel if they just gave them the documents, potentially it would be easy just to re-forward them. It wasn't a big production.
Okay, so let's go with Member Padmanabhan.
So this is again to Mr. Cote. So on June 2019, was the request filed by Ms. Satish or by Mr. Bo?
It's the same person. She uses different aliases.
So no, I don't.
Please,
I'm sorry.
please, Ms. Trumeau. Okay, we refer to you as the name on your complaint. Okay, you'll have a chance to rebut. You'll have a chance to rebut, but we can only have one person at a time speaking, and they're addressing whoever the task force wants to address. So appreciate your patience. Thank you. Please continue.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Bo, yes, I'd like to ask you what you believe is the confusion about your name.
Okay, first off, the city attorney's office does not know me. I do not know them. My legal name is Ann Trubeau. I have not used the name Dadish for many years, going beyond a decade. So this and that is coming out of this guy's mind. I requested documents in June, that is correct, in the exact same way through Margaret Baumgartner. Somehow it wound up in her trash, and somehow it resulted in an order issued by the task force because I didn't get the documents. So now we're coming into October. I still haven't received the documents of a case that I won, that had an opening brief, a response brief, a reply brief, all of this filed and served by hand through the San Francisco Sheriff's Department. This is all documented. I did not have copies of these things because I was not in California. I am not in California now. I was to get better reception in a fire escape in New York, and some bozo comes along and tries to rip open the door. That's what that was about. So my name is Ann Trubeau. I never filed anything electronically. I simply wanted the documents so I could file a reply brief, and I ended up having to fly from New York to San Francisco to walk in to the California Court of Appeal to physically copy the file myself because I couldn't get the files out of the city attorney's office. As far as The other untruths that Mr. Cote has put forth to the task force, he hasn't supplied any facts or evidence to support his claims. It's all vague nonsense. The purpose of a document request, which is filed, can be filed according to the ordinance to any city employee, is to get the documents. It seems like a broken chain of command of mistakes going throughout the city attorney's office, and the fact that there are 2 orders issued against Margaret Baumgartner for the exact same thing. They need to reform the way they do things instead of slander, personally attack, and make up stories about me. This is an issue of documents. It's not a personal attack on me.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Who's next? Any other questions, clarifications? Okay, Member Neighbors.
This was just to get back to Member LaHood's earlier comment and Member Forsley's response about interpretation, and the same person came in week after week or day after day to request the same documents. I'm just curious about, for me, interpretation of policy would need to hang on existing text of policy. And I was wondering if you could point me to, I'm assuming that would need to be something we would be interpreting from section 6721A or B. And I was just wondering if there's a specific place I should be looking at to be thinking about that.
If I can interject for just a second. This particular section of the procedure is purely investigation. If we can lead the deliberation of the merits to after rebuttals, because you might hear some other things during rebuttals, that would be preferable. Right now, we're just trying to, anything that may not be within the documents that are in the record, or that you've heard in the opening testimony, you feel you need more questions or clarifications. It's kind of like your opportunity to do the interview, the investigator's interview. I would appreciate it.
Okay.
I think we'll have a richer discussion during deliberations. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Member LaHood. Okay. Who's next? Member Stein. Did you want to go next? You're on mute.
Yes, hi. This is Laura Stein, Member Stein. I just wanted to ask Ms. Trudeau, why did she submit the petition to Ms. Baumgartner as opposed to anyone else? And why did she not submit it to this email address that she was asked to submit it to, or at least CC it to that email address?
Firstly, Margaret Baumgartner is the attorney of record on the appeal case and the underlying case, which I won at the Court of Appeal. So it would seem most logical to submit it to her. I did not get the email almost reprimanding me until February 5th. This original IDR was sent October 30th. So after it was mishandled by Buta and a cold breath, then in the response, the letter response then came, oh, she's been told many times. I have not been told many times. I did my due diligence. I reached out to these people, even though they didn't have direct contact information on the emails I received from them. And as any task force member knows, that the duty of the respondent is to direct the requester to a place where they can get the information. Nowhere on that was, oh, well, let me direct you to this other entity where you can get the information. They had that information there. They had the entire file, which probably comprised about 2,000 documents. It was not one piece of paper. It was not, I am filing an appeal. This case went to full hearing, it went to full arguments, and there was a 17-page decision, which I won. There was an enormous amount of documentation. The burden was on the respondent to identify what documents they had, which ones they were going to turn over to me, and which ones they were going to turn over in a redacted form. Not to say attorney-client privilege. It was nothing like that. We just don't have any documents, and we don't feel a need that we have to turn it over. That's not what the ordinance says, and that's not what it's about. And especially when Mr. Cote is up there directing the task force to a letter which says a lot of slander about me. He should have focused on, these are the documents that we have, this is what we're going to turn over, and this is what we're not going to turn over. Instead of admitting fault, oh, well, we missed the 72-hour window, we missed the 10-day window. They come up with some nonsense, which seems to repeat itself over and over again. It wound up in the person's trash, and she was in Europe. I didn't get any information telling me that. I got no information at all.
Okay. Okay. We have some other questions here. Member Forsley and then Member Schmidt.
I was just wondering regarding the issue of the winning and losing. The other person stated from the city attorney's office that he believes she lost. She keeps saying she won, and there's documents associated with that win. Do the task force members see the documents in this packet?
No. All you have to do is go to the California Court of Appeal or just Google my name. It will come up. It's public information.
Okay,
The decision.
Go ahead. I did finish your point. I'm sorry. I interrupted you. Okay. Member Schmidt? You're on mute.
Member Forsley, were you satisfied? Were you done with your issue?
I believe so.
Okay. I'll ask Ms. Trabeau. You said you won in the Court of Appeal. Could you describe what the ruling was?
Well, you can just Google my name. It's there. City and Trabeau v. City and County of San Francisco. The ruling was a procedural issue that the city attorney neglected. They charged in the trial court, the Superior Court, under the wrong statute. They accused me of stalking and harassing an arts commissioner, somebody I don't know and I have never met before. But this woman happened to be elderly, and the decision was that they should have charged up the elder statute instead of a workplace violence. City Hall, where you are having your meetings, is not your particular workplace, but that was done in a very controlled manner to keep me out of City Hall, and also to keep me out of the War Memorial building across the street, which did the most harm for me because my nephew dances in the ballet. I was prevented for 2 years from seeing him perform. I don't know why they ruled like that. It was, I think, a 300-yard stay away. The whole thing was outrageous. But in the 17-page decision, they pointed out the procedural errors of the lack of service, the charge under the wrong statute. It was not a workplace violence issue. It should have been charged under an elder abuse issue. They pointed to other cases and the fact that there was no evidence to support any kind of workplace violence at all. That in the trial court, the complaining witness, this Barbara Scalar, this arts commissioner, contradicted her testimony 5 separate times.
Okay, thank you. One separate question, which is the the documents that you're requesting having to do with the appeal, do you know what documents actually exist that you were not given? What are the documents that you're looking for?
Okay, when an individual files a case at the California Court of Appeal First District, it's very specific and regimented. You file the notice, you file an opening brief, then the other side files a response brief. They mailed that to me. It came in paper form. Nothing ever came electronically. There was my reply brief. And then there was a lot of back and forth with the administrator when the case was going to be heard, oral arguments and that sort of thing. And then I came back for oral arguments. I was in the room. Baumgartner was there. Deanna Rosenstein was there, 2 lawyers. I was unrepresented, and very scared, but I stood up. I had researched it, and I said this didn't.
I think I got my answer about the documents. Thank you, Ms. Trabeau. I want to ask just Mr. Cote, do you understand what the ruling was at the Court of Appeal? Did they amend somehow so that the restraining order was changed so that it was now enacted under a different statute?
That's not my understanding of the case, Member Schmidt, and I'm happy to quote from the Court of Appeals opinion.
Yes, please.
Right here, if you would indulge me. So keep in mind, of course, that the appeal was filed by Ms. Trabeau. She appealed because she lost at the Superior Court. And the Court of Appeal, in a unanimous decision, said in part, the trial court heard the evidence and chose to believe Tricky, who is the city employee, over Trabeau. We declined to second guess its decision to do so. Having examined the record, we conclude that the court's findings are supported by substantial evidence. In addition to arguments directed to the adequacy of the proof, Trabeau contends the court had no personal jurisdiction over her because she does not do business here and resides in New York. She also contends her due process rights were violated because she had no opportunity to defend, and she contends the court's restraining order violates her First Amendment rights. We reject all of these arguments. She not only answered the city's petition, thereby making a general appearance, but appeared and defended at the hearing until she absented herself. And the restraining order is directed to Trabeau's conduct, not her speech. In a final argument, Trabeau complains of delay, contending that the alleged battery occurred on June 15, 2018, and yet the city waited many weeks before filing its petition while Tricky was out of the country. Trabeau forfeited this argument by failing to raise any issue of delay below, and even if the issue were cognizable on appeal, it was for the trial court and its sound discretion to determine how, if at all, the passage of time bore in its decision to enter a restraining order. The court was within its discretion to issue such an order here, affirmed by all 3 justices.
Got it. Great. Thank you, Mr. Cote. Thank you thank you to both of you. I have no further questions.
Member
No further
Forsley?
questions. Thank you.
Member Forsley? Did you have anything else? No?
I think my hand is up for me.
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, are there no, I'm sorry. This is a question and answer period for the task force. We're not taking unsolicited responses. Members, are there any other questions, clarifications you need? Okay, are you ready to move to rebuttals? Okay, let's move to rebuttals. Mr. Cote, you go first. 3 minutes.
You may begin. Mr. Cote, do you have any rebuttals to provide?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. My apologies. I would simply point the task force to, again, our written response, my earlier responses to their questions, and note that obviously we do not feel that there is sufficient grounds here to find any violation. Now, if the task force happens to disagree, I would simply respectfully ask that your motion reference our office and not Margaret Baumgartner. She is not responsible for responding to sunshine requests on behalf of our office. She simply had the misfortune of being out of the office when this request happened to be sent to her. And with that, I'll submit.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Chabot, you have 3 minutes for rebuttal.
Okay, apologies. The previous case against the Arts Commissioner, it was the one I won. This case, number A15666, has documents beginning from 3/14/2019, consistently, I'm looking at the docket, to 6/25/2020. There are well over 50 docket entries in this court case. Margaret Baumgartner is responsible because she was the person that I sent the email to. Whether she takes it upon herself to answer or not answer is irrelevant. The ordinance is clear, and especially when 2 previous orders have issued against her for the exact same thing, when curiously enough it winds up in the trash and she happens to be away. I did not get any away message. I did not know what was going on. And so I request that her name be on the order. There's a tremendous amount of documents in this thing. As I said, it was well over 2,000 documents. I'm not going to get into the specifics, but I don't know the sound tricky. And you know, as I said, when there are documents and they are readily available, the respondent has a duty to respond, to turn them over. And quoting Mr. Cote, you said we didn't feel a need to turn over 1 page. I don't think so. They had a duty to turn over their responses, their everything. And it clearly says that I was a pro se litigant who filed by paper. There's no indication that I received anything electronically from Joseph County of San Francisco. It was all served through the San Francisco Sheriff's Department. So I request not only that the task force find the late violation, but for the justification of withholding, the lack of identifying the documents, the you know, this is the 3rd violation for the exact same thing. They need to fix what they're doing, and the only way that I see to do that is to send it back to committee. So I request the task force find violations and refer it back to committee for follow-up.
Okay, thank you. All right, members, now it's time for deliberation and to come to some conclusion of this. Yeah, Member Forster.
The person here from the city stated that they gave the documents they had at the time that the request was made. So I feel like, I mean, is that person lying about that? I think that's what I would have to think to say, obviously, that they didn't do that. And I just, honestly, I don't necessarily think that person is lying about that. So I feel like this sounds like, I feel like this is going back and forth to committee, and then it'll go back to committee for what reason to be put back here. Like,
okay.
respondent didn't provide proof that
Member LaHood. Member LaHood.
So one thing that I think we should discuss is it's my understanding that anyone who works for a city agency is responsible for responding. They might not be the one who supplies the documents, but they are responsible for responding. I do understand the desire to streamline the process by saying, send your requests here. That said, was there, and obviously people do go out of town, is an automatic response that someone is out of town considered this to the Chair Wolf, is that a sufficient response? Or if someone is going to be out of town for a significant period of time, is there some sort of requirement that someone else be monitoring the email box just in case a request comes through? Or is the automatic reply a sufficient response so that the requester knows that they need to follow a different channel?
Yeah, we've had this question before us many times, and we have found that automated replies are not positive responses. Okay, they're passive responses.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why this city has moved towards the next request system, because it demands a positive response, an active response. Somebody has to engage the system. It can't be just an autoresponder, because this came up for issues around immediate disclosure requests. Okay, so you get an instantaneous response. I'm out of town. That's not responsive. That's a notice. It's not the same.
Right.
Okay, Member Forsley, and then Member Stein.
I think that it's also important to know the sequence of events, because if the person got, let's say, an out of the office response, but they've received an email in the past saying you should streamline this request here because we're trying to streamline this process, to be obstinate when you have a way to actually get the information, that would seem like if we were going to violate somebody on that, we're just trying to go, I don't know, it just seems very like we're not trying to solve the problem, we're just trying to get somebody in trouble. Because if this person had this other email to send this to at the time, it seems like they would just send it there. I'm not saying all city departments have that ends. I'm saying probably most don't have that well-known thing. But if somebody got a direct way to actually know they were getting to somebody and just didn't, that just seems strange.
Member Stein?
You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I have two points I just want to raise. One is that, I have some concern about people who are receiving information requests deciding that somebody already has access to that information through other means. I don't really see anything in the Sunshine Ordinance that says you can make that determination or you should make that determination. But rather, if you have the information and you can give it easily, that you should just give it. And it sounds like most of this information might have been electronically filed. And then I was just looking at the First Appellate District docket of actions that happened in this case. And there are some things that were submitted by the city attorney's office before the date that this information request was made. So it does seem like there were briefs that were submitted by the city attorney's office that could have been provided that weren't.
Vice Chair Yankee.
I kind of agree with both Member Forsley and Member Stein. To me, I'm not convinced that the petitioner didn't have other ways to try to get the information. I think she's fully aware of other entities within the city attorney's office or other email addresses that she could have included. So I'm not sure that faulting someone for being out of town is necessarily a timeliness issue in this particular case. That being said, I do absolutely see Member Stein's point that I don't think just because you may have the record to begin with that you're therefore precluded from requesting it. I mean, if I were to have a contract with the city, I might have a signed copy and they might have a signed copy, but I still think I'd be able to ask them for the signed copy. Maybe I lost mine or whatever. And so to me, it does sound like records were not turned over that were disclosable under the pretense that she already should have had them. I'm not sure that's really to me, a valid excuse for not turning those documents over, especially if everyone agrees that they were disclosable. So I definitely see an issue there. I'm not sure that I necessarily see an issue, though, with the timeliness of Ms. Baumgartner's out of office response or something.
Member Neighbors.
Thank you. I would like us, I would urge everyone to kind of be careful about conflating character judgments of individuals and application of policy. Because I think it's really easy to consider somebody obstinate or to think of a request as a nuisance request or burdensome. And yet when somebody comes before our body, they expect to be heard on the policy, not about our characterization of them, including the findings of the appeal or the terms of the case in question. It's about access to their documents. Plenty of people have reasons for not being able to store their own documents or keep up with them or need them replaced. Plenty of people have issues that may keep them from remembering that they made the request in the first place. That's not really it's not really our job, I don't believe, to determine whether or not they were morally correct or ethically correct or responsible or forgetful or whatever. Our job is to maintain the policy. And if records are not provided to her, no matter how much of a nuisance she was felt to be or what the past circumstances were, it was still the responsibility of the respondent to follow the policy. And that has nothing to do with the complainant's character or their demeanor or anything else.
Member Forster.
I think that's definitely a good point. One of the reasons that I was asking about the outcome of the case generally was because if there's an outcome to a case, there's obviously more like physical documentation. So it's kind of determining like if it went this far, there is something available. And I think that Member Stein kind of looking up that information, that there was things submitted that show that there were things available, then that actually has nothing to do with somebody having, you know, an email address that they could have emailed, and personally I think should have emailed if they really wanted the documents.
Anybody else? So one thing I'll chime in is to say that you know, the easy thing to do, I mean, is to say if you don't have the documents, you know, we don't have any responsive documents, you know, you might go back to the court where all the documents are filed and find what you need there. Okay, if there was no responsive documents, I agree that the ordinance, the way it's written, because we have the Sunshine Ordinance, which is an enhancement of the CPRA that allows requesters to make people to make requests directly to actual people and not just to an agency. The onus is on the custodian themselves to respond. And if they don't have any responsive records, it is their responsibility to assist as to where people might be able to find them. There's no guarantee. You know, it may end up being a wild goose chase for some people as the way things go, but if various people don't have them and you keep getting bounced around, you know, that's kind of the nature of the situation at times. But there is that responsibility. So, and there's also a limit on how much time people can be spending. Generally, it's about 20 minutes, to be honest with you, that custodians should spend on any one request. And that's why we have things like incremental rolling basis. People can say, I don't have it right now. I need to go into an archive. I need some extra time, to be able to do things. There's some flexibility built in to help people be able to get their requests, but also help staff be able to comply with the ordinance, but at the same time be able to do their job, which is also important. So, that said, I think that that's there. The question here is these are legal, even though these are public documents. The question is do we have jurisdiction over what do we have jurisdiction over? Which documents? Now, if they're trying to get documents out of the court, well, we don't have jurisdiction over that. We can't ask the court for those documents. The requester is asking for documents from the opposing party. And I think their response was like, send me whatever documents you want, exclude the ones for attorney-client privilege, redact what you need to redact, and then just give me the rest. I think it's a little hard that just because there is court documents that to say you should know, or there should be some assumption that could be that all the documents would be there. And I think Member Stein bringing up that there could be possibly other documents. So that's why. And frankly, people do, whether or not it's a court case or not, if people are looking for documents that are records that were communications between various different agencies or people within a request, you are possibly looking for a missing document that might be some corroboration for something. So that is why you can make multiple requests from different departments on the same issue, or different people on the same issue. One thing I am a little concerned about, though, and forgive me, this wasn't flagged for me in creating the agenda, is whether this has been heard before. I thought I heard the complainant had said that this was the third time that they have gotten an order against them for this particular set of records. So
No.
I'm a little concerned. I'm a little concerned about that.
No.
So,
2 other orders have issued against Margaret Baumgardner for different documents, completely not relevant to this document request.
Okay. Thank you for that interjection. So I just want to be cognizant, because we have heard other files regarding this particular issue with against the same parties. So I'll do a little better diligence on that in the future at this point. Anything else? No, I'm sorry. This is not, I allowed that one interjection, okay, just for clarification, but this is not, we have no more requests for comments here. So thank you very much, Mr. Bo. Please mute yourself. Members, is there a motion? If there are no other questions or deliberation, we cannot move forward without a motion, either to find a violation or not to find a violation. But there has to be a motion to close this file.
All right, I'll make a motion. This is Vice Chair Yankee. I'd move to find a violation of 6726 for not releasing certain disclosable documents under the pretense that Ms. Trabeau was already in possession of them.
I second that. This is Member
Who is
Who is the second?
Sorry, who's second?
Padmanabhan.
Okay, moved by member Vice Chair Yankee, second by member Padmanabhan. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, let's open it up for public comment, excluding the parties.
Vice Chair Yankee, could you repeat that? I didn't catch the last part of it.
Yes, I said a violation of 6726 for not releasing disclosable records under the pretense that Ms. Trabeau was already in possession of them.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to provide public comment on this motion and file?
Anonymous.
Yes,
Anonymous,
please
please.
proceed, Anonymous.
Thank you. I wanted to very much support the motion, but more importantly, support what Member Neighbors was earlier saying. I hope it was Member Neighbors. I don't know everybody's voice yet. About how all that is relevant here is whether or not the city complied with the Sunshine Ordinance. Were the records public? I think there's no doubt they're public, as i.e. they're public records under CPRA. Then were they disclosable? They've admitted that at least some of the records were disclosable, the ones that aren't privileged under attorney-client and work product privileges. And then did they provide them? It doesn't matter. There is no exemption in the CPRA or the Sunshine Ordinance that says if you have possession of the document, that as in the agency has possession of the documents, that they can tell you to go to different agencies, like the court. They can only tell you to go to someone else if they don't have constructive possession of the records. It doesn't matter that some of the records were sent by the complainant. You've held in my favor when I send emails and I want the copies that their version of those emails, I get them because there's different, for example, metadata in them. You've held that when I ask for a record that both the police department and the FBI hold, the police department could not simply tell me, go to the FBI instead. The police department had to give me their copy of the record. And it doesn't matter what this complainant may or may not have done. I have no idea anything about her or anything about the history here. It just doesn't matter. If the city is asked for a record, if it's public and disclosable, you should provide them a copy. Be done with it. It would have saved everyone a lot of time and effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public for public comment?
Yes, please, if you can hear me.
Yes, please proceed.
I beg your pardon?
Please proceed.
This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. We have no particular knowledge other than of this case and are not a party to it. However, I think it's an extremely important matter, and I have seen this sort of thing going on, and I consider it, well, I agree with the motion and most of the folks that have spoken pretty much in support, including Anonymous who just spoke. The only question is, did a request properly be made? And the Sunshine Ordinance says every person with access to a record is a custodian of the record and has to respond. That's it. The idea that all these other essentially red herrings matter, I think is simply dangerously wrong. Whether somebody has different names over different times, whether somebody has been misbehaving or accusedly misbehaving somewhere else, has nothing to do with their rights. And it's certainly not mentioned in the Sunshine Ordinance. The question of how frequently can somebody ask for the same record, I think, is also doesn't seem to apply here at all. But I do think that, as was mentioned by one of the members, there are many reasons why somebody might want to request something again. And again, there's nothing in the Sunshine Ordinance that says you can't do that. If I go to the library and look at an unabridged dictionary, I may want to do that tomorrow or the next day or twice a day, and I may be doing it for different reasons. I've requested documents and been looking for something in particular, and then sometime later, after I've been through with the documents and may have gotten rid of them, I may find that there's something relevant that I need to look at them again from a different perspective, or look for something that I realized might be missing. There's endless reasons why such things can happen. If we take the real life example, in the old days, you could walk into an office and ask to see a file, and you would get to see it, presumably. And if you came tomorrow because you hadn't finished looking, or because you had another issue or a question or whatever reason, you could be shown it again. Likewise, I think if you send somebody who was certainly connected and has a connection with the file and with the records, I think it's up to the agency. If you go personally to an agency, they'll have somebody saying, well, Ms. Baumgartner is out of the country, but let's give you the person who's in charge now. I think it's the agency's duty to make sure that mail, whether it's physical mail or email, gets responded to properly when this is somebody who is working for them or even has worked for them. So I think this violation should be upheld. Thanks very much.
Has elapsed. Are there any other speakers on this motion? It appears that is the last speaker. I do have a request for one clarification that came up. Is this complaint and violation against the Office of the City Attorney or Ms. Baumgartner and the Office of the City Attorney?
Has to go. No, please. This has to go to the maker of the motion.
Let me see what was in the agenda for this.
It was against the Margaret Baumgartner.
I would more generally say, I guess we could include Margaret Baumgartner because at some point she was in receipt of it when she returned from her vacation. So I would say Margaret Baumgartner and the Office of the City Attorney. If the second is okay with that.
Well, the Office of the City Attorney, hold on, let's not, hold on a second. Go back, you got to go back to the original complaint, because if you're going to expand it, there has to be some reason for that.
I noticed
579.
Yeah, I think the initial complaint actually named both.
You got to go by the intake. The intake says Margaret Baumgartner as of City Attorney.
It said, I'm trying to think, page 579.
No, page 550. 550. That's the intake form.
550. It says Margaret Baumgartner / SF City Attorney. So I think it probably makes sense to name both.
Okay.
Thank you. Public comment on this item
is closed.
Was closed. Would you like me to take a vote on the motion?
Just a moment. I just want to say that we do need to caution ourselves, if anybody is knowledgeable, that while requests can be made for the same records over and over again, we cannot try for the same allegation twice. There are double jeopardy issues. So we have to be cognizant of that. We do, if there, for some reason, there was something overlooked, we do have a reconsideration process, like an appeals process, that's available to either party. Okay, with that, are we ready for a vote? Okay, please call roll.
Yes, on that motion, Vice Chair Yankee.
Aye.
Yankee, aye. Member Papelbon.
Aye.
Papelbon, aye. Member Highland.
Aye.
And an aye. Member Frazier.
Aye.
Frazier, aye. Member Forsley.
No.
Forsley, no. Sorry. Member Neighbors.
Aye.
Neighbors, aye. Member Stein.
Aye.
Stein, aye. Member Schmidt.
Nay.
Schmidt, nay. Member Wong.
Aye.
Wong, aye. Member LaHood.
Aye.
LaHood, aye. Chair Wolf.
Nay.
Wolf, nay. Give me a moment. That would be the motion passes with 8 ayes and 3 noes.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we're going to take a 10-minute recess. We'll return at 7, let's see, 6:55, 7:05.
Yes, I will ask that members turn off your camera and mute your microphone as the recording will continue to run. Thank you very much.
Like, don't worry.
Mr. Young, are you there?
I'm here.
I'm talking to Victor.
I know.
Oh, sorry, I muted myself again. I keep doing that.
Okay. No
It
problem.
looks like we do have quorum from.
Yeah, we got quorum.
Mhm. So if you would like to continue on.
Yes, let's bring it back to order.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is item number 7. File number 19126, complaint filed by Antrabo against the San Francisco Arts